Hi gang, welcome back. Let's try number 9 on page 4. So the goal here is to find the sine, the cosine, and the tangent of 225 degrees without a calculator, right? Without a calculator. So we're going to do that using reference angles. And in the lecture, I showed you how to calculate the reference angle. Okay, so what I did here is I did some preliminary setup. I've drawn the 225 degrees. So when we find theta prime, remember from the lecture I told you that it's always from the terminal side to the closest horizontal. So if this is the terminal side, right, where you start is the initial, where you stop is the terminal side, the theta prime is always from the terminal side to the horizontal. So that means that theta prime is going to sit right in here, okay? It's the acute angle from the terminal side to the horizontal. Okay, and then we have to calculate what that is, right? So if you think about it, we know that to here is 180 degrees, and we know we've gone all the way to 225. So if here is 225 degrees, and here is 180 degrees, then that means that we have to figure out just how much more we traveled to get here, right? So it would be the difference between 225 degrees minus 180 degrees, which would give us our 45 degrees, right? Because that would be the gap between the 180 to the 225. All right, so that means that our reference angle is 45 degrees. Now, 45 degrees, I showed you that triangle, right? And we even discussed it on page 2 of this packet. We even discussed your 45, 45, 90 triangle. So now that's what we have. We have your 45, 45, 90 triangle. And we know the sides of that, right? That's your 1, 1, radical 2 triangle. Okay, so now let's come back over here for a moment. And let's rewrite the sine, cosine, and tangent in terms of its reference angle. Now remember, when you do the reference angle, you also have to include the correct positive or negative of the particular quadrant. So we're in quadrant 3, and that's when we went over in lecture, all students take calculus to get the correct plus or minus. So in quadrant 3, the sine is negative. In quadrant 3, the cosine is negative. And in quadrant 3, the tangent is positive because it's the ratio of those, right? Okay, so if you remember, the sine is like the y, the cosine is like the x, if that helps you figure out the plus or minus, right? X is negative on the left, positive on the right, y is positive up, negative down. All right, so now let me come over here. So now I have to combine both the plus or minus with the reference angle. So the sine is negative, the cosine is negative, and the tangent is positive in quadrant 3. And then I'll put the reference angle in. So this is sine 45 degrees, cosine 45 degrees, tangent 45 degrees. So again, when you use reference angles, you also have to incorporate the plus or minus of the particular quadrant you're in, because it's together in tandem, those two create what the original trig function is that you're trying to evaluate. All right, so here we go. So now I know, since it's 45 degrees, I know what the triangle looks like. So sine, which is opposite over hypotenuse, that's 1 over radical 2. Right, now you're doing what we did on the previous page, right? Opposite over hypotenuse, that's your sine. So it's 1 over radical 2. Cosine is your adjacent over your hypotenuse, right? So from 45 degrees, 1 over radical 2. And then your tangent is your opposite over your adjacent. So from your angle, your opposite over your adjacent, right? Because this is your adjacent side, this is your opposite side. So this is positive 1 over 1. If you rationalized, your answers look like this. Okay? And that's it for this one. So I'll pick back up in the next video with number 10 and we'll practice this again. Okay, catch you. Bye-bye.